In this video I'm going to talk about how to pattern the short puffed sleeve using the slash and spread patterning method. The first thing we want to do is figure out how to get from the straight basic fitted sleeve to the puffed sleeve. In order to do that, we need to analyze the designer's sketch and ask the two essential questions. So here is a quick half bodice and one sleeve the designer quickly sketched. So this would be center front, this is the side seam, this is the neckline, here's the side of the neck coming up, here's the top of the shoulder, and then here is that short sleeve that the designer wanted. Clearly showing that there are marks indicating gathers into a small cuff here at the bicep line, and then showing no gathers whatsoever. So we know we want the sleeve cap, the top of the sleeve, to be smooth fitting into the bodice. So this is what we need to pattern with the measurements that we took with our model. So after analyzing the designer's sketch, we noted that there's extra length and there's extra width. So let's figure out the extra width. You might think that you could figure that extra width out by doing this, but the sketch, while in 2D, is not represented here so well. So we need to figure out the circumference, adding space in the front, in the back, and here toward me at the shoulder, what corresponds with the shoulder. And so that's why we have our fit model help us hold the tape out. And that looks to be about 24 inches around. The second essential question is there extra length? And yes, starting from the shoulder, coming down to where we want the sleeve to finish, might measure about 10 in the flat, but we want that puff. We want that extra length so that the sleeve can puff out. And that measures 15. So we're going to add about 5 inches to the length of this short sleeve to get it to have this silhouette. So now we'll start manipulating and changing the pattern to reflect what the designer wants here. And I note here that this sleeve ends proportionally about 2 inches below the bottom of the arm's eye, so I'm going to go for that to end there. Another thing to note in the designer's sketch is where the sleeve ends in proportion to the arm that's underneath. And I'm guesstimating that the sleeve ends and sits about 2 inches below the armpit. So let's pattern that. So here's our original sleeve block, and we never cut and manipulate, change the original sleeve block. We will make a copy of it. Now, because we are doing a short sleeve, I didn't copy those the elbow darts or any of those marks on the bottom because we're not going to use them. Instead, I'm measuring 2 inches below the armpit or the bicep line, and I'm cutting away all of that to achieve a short sleeve. And this is the sleeve that I'm going to then slash and spread in order to introduce the extra width and the extra length. To prepare the short sleeve for the slash and spread process, we want to draw in lines between the front notch and the back notch, and those are the lines that we're going to cut. This heavier line is the original grain line. It is springing from the shoulder notch. In the designer's sketch, the sleeve cap itself, the seam line here, fits smoothly into the arm's eye. So we don't want to introduce any fullness here. We want to introduce fullness here. And so that tells you where to cut from. We're going to be cutting up to that sleeve cap line. But you want to leave about 1/8 of an inch of paper here. That is going to act as a hinge. Once you have the pattern cut on each of those lines, then you begin to see what the spreading part of slash and spread means. You can see that we are retaining the length of the line, seam line here at the top. So this will fit smoothly into the designer's or the arm's eye, but we are introducing more width here at the bottom. This is just what we want. Next, get a clean sheet of paper and draw in your grain line. I, of course, am inking these in with a marker. You'll use pen. I'm using marker so that you can see it in the video. Push pin the slashed pattern onto matching the grain lines. Now this is depending on your cutting technique, you might want to number your pattern, your slashed pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's in case this gets torn and flutters onto the floor and gets lost, or someone finds it and says, "What's this?" And you think, "I have no idea where that goes." If they're numbered, it's a breadcrumb trail so that you can see where to find your way home again. Now, we measured around the arm of our model how wide, how big around this wants to be. And so this is where you use the tape measure in a curve and arrange your pieces to be that measurement. You'll want to be careful here to not buckle up like this, because this will change the length of this seam line. So you want to be very careful about keying off of that hinge on each piece. Push pinning that down so that we retain a smooth line here and maintaining the rhythm. If this is if this sleeve is evenly spread all the way around, you would want these pie-shaped pieces to be the same or nearly the same. And that is the measurement of the around that we took on our model. So that's terrific. Next, we need to add the amount of extra length. So we want to pencil in, and I measured that from the shoulder notch down on the arm. And so we'll want to pencil that in. Now, we don't want that much extra length here under her arm. It would just be bulky under her arm, but we do want some. And so I'm going to guesstimate a couple inches, just because I've done this before and I know that's a pretty good number. And then the blending of the line this way. Better than I do. There we are. You want to be sure to maintain a 90-degree angle here, so that when we stitch the side seam to the other side seam, we have a nice blended line. So both of these need to be that 90 degrees. Now that we have the bottom seam line penciled in, it's just a matter of tracing the top line, transferring the notches, and taking the slashed pieces away, and there's your new puffed sleeve pattern. Then this puffed sleeve, which will be gathered here when we stitch it up, needs a cuff band to stitch to, and that's just a straight piece that it's essentially a rectangle, and depends on how wide you want that to be. I'm making this one finish at about 3/4 of an inch. It's going to fold and be 3/4 of an inch on the inside, and then we probably want that to be a couple inches wider or bigger around than her bicep, so that when she moves it will slide up and down. So this is going to be a very delicate little cuff, folded and stitched here and self-faced.